They tell you that freedom costs money, but they never list the price on the tag. I thought the cost of leaving my husband would be loneliness, or maybe the shame of a failed marriage. I was wrong. The real cost was calculated in frozen assets, locking differentials, and the 3 seconds of silence before a credit card terminal beeps a rejection. I didn't buy a Porsche to drive fast. I bought it to survive. If you're watching this video, tell me where you're from or what time it is for you. The coffee in the Porsche dealership tasted like burnt hazelnuts and aggressive sales tactics. I held the ceramic cup with both hands, trying to stop the tremor in my left thumb from spilling the dark liquid onto my white silk blouse. The salesman, a man named Gavin who wore a watch that cost more than my first car, tapped the keyboard of his terminal. His fingernails were manicured, shiny, and terrifyingly clean. "Just a moment, Mrs. Vance," Gavin said, his smile tight. "The system is a little slow today. Sunday traffic on the servers." I nodded, forcing my lips to curve upward. "Take your time. I'm in no rush." That was a lie. I was in a rush. I was in a desperate, suffocating sprint against a clock I couldn't even see. The leather of the chair beneath me squeaked as I shifted my weight. The showroom smelled of new rubber and expensive cologne, a scent that usually signaled power, but today smelled like a trap. "Right," Gavin said. He hit the enter key with a flourish. I watched the screen on the back of his monitor. I couldn't see the text, but I saw the reflection of the red banner in his glasses. Declined. My stomach dropped, a physical sensation like missing a step on a staircase in the dark. "That's odd," Gavin muttered. He didn't look at me. He looked at the machine, frowning. "It says issuer declined. Do you have another card?" "It's a limitless black card," I said, my voice sounding thin and reedy in the cavernous room. "There shouldn't be a limit." "Banks are funny about large purchases on weekends," Gavin said, his tone shifting from deferential to patronizing. "Fraud protection, probably. Do you want to call them?" "No," I said too quickly. "Try it again." "Mrs. Vance." "Try it again, Gavin." He sighed, a small puff of air through his nose, and slid the heavy metal card back into the reader. I stared at the little digital display. Processing? Processing? My phone buzzed in my purse. I ignored it. I knew who it was, or rather, I knew who it wasn't. It wasn't David telling me this was a mistake. It wasn't David telling me he had fixed the glitch. Transaction not authorized. The beep was loud, piercing the hushed atmosphere of the showroom. Heads turned. A couple looking at a Cayenne over by the window glanced in our direction. The shame was hot and prickly, crawling up my neck. "I'm sorry," Gavin said, handing the card back. He held it by the very edge, as if the poverty might be contagious. "Maybe you should come back on Monday when the banks are open." I took the card. It felt cold and heavy, a useless piece of titanium. "I'll sort it out," I whispered. I stood up, my knees locking. "I'll be back." "Of course," Gavin said. He was already looking past me toward the couple by the window. I was no longer a commission. I was a waste of time. I walked out of the glass doors into the biting December wind. My hands were shaking so badly I couldn't get the keys to my current car, a 5-year-old sedan, out of my bag. I had to lean against the cold glass of the showroom wall, breathing in the exhaust fumes of the highway, trying not to vomit. I pulled my phone out. One notification. Bank of America. Alert. Security hold placed on account ending in 4492. Contact primary account holder for details. Primary account holder. David. I dialed his number. It rang once, twice. Then the voicemail click. "You've reached David. Leave a message." I didn't leave a message. I looked at the dealership behind me, at the gleaming 911 Targa I had just tried to buy to prove to myself that I still had access to our life. I didn't. I was locked out. And David wasn't just staying with his ex. He was erasing me. The house was too quiet. It was a 4-bedroom colonial in the suburbs, a forever home we had bought 3 years ago, but tonight it felt like a museum exhibit. I closed the front door and locked it. The deadbolt slid home with a heavy thunk, but it didn't make me feel safe. I dropped my keys on the console table. They sounded like gunshots in the silence. "David," I called out. I knew he wasn't there. I just needed to hear my own voice. I walked into the kitchen. The granite countertops were spotless. The stainless steel refrigerator hummed. On the island, a note sat exactly where he had left it 2 days ago. "Mara, Julia is in a bad place. Rehab didn't stick. I need to get her settled. It's a mess. Don't wait up. I'll call when I can. D." I picked up the note. The handwriting was rushed, the loops of the L's tight and jagged. I had read it 100 times in the last 48 hours. Rationalize it, I told myself. He's a good man. He cares about people. That's why I married him. He's loyal, even to her. But loyalty shouldn't look like a declined credit card. I opened the fridge, a bottle of white wine half empty, some takeout containers, a jar of olives. I closed it. I wasn't hungry. I was nauseous. I pulled my phone out again and opened the Find My app. We shared locations. It was a safety thing, or so we said. Usually I never checked it. The map loaded, the little blue grid lines filling in slowly. My dot pulsed blue in the kitchen. David's dot was a static gray pin, last updated 14 minutes ago. He was at 422 Willow Creek Lane. I didn't know the address, but I knew who lived there. I had looked it up yesterday. Julia's parents' old house, the one she inherited. He was 20 minutes away. Why was he there on a Sunday night? If she was in rehab, shouldn't he be at a clinic or a hotel? "He's helping her pack," I said aloud to the empty kitchen. "He's helping her sort through her parents' things before she goes back to the facility." It made sense. It was logical. David was the executor of her father's estate years ago. He knew the paperwork. He was just being helpful. I walked to the living room and sat on the edge of the sofa. The leather was cold. I looked at the wedding photo on the mantel. We looked so happy. I looked so young, so trusting. He wouldn't do this, I thought. He wouldn't lock the accounts. It's a glitch, a bank error. But the notification said, "Security hold." That wasn't a glitch. That was a deliberate action. My chest tightened. I needed to know. I couldn't just sit here and guess. I needed to see the numbers. Numbers didn't lie. People lied. Numbers just added up or they didn't. I stood up and walked toward the home office. The floorboards creaked under my feet. The hallway seemed longer than usual, the shadows stretching out from the doorways like fingers. The office was freezing. David always kept the vents closed in here to save money. I rubbed my arms and sat at the desk. I woke up the desktop computer. The screen flared to life, the brightness stinging my eyes. I opened the browser and clicked the bookmark for our joint business account, Vance & Co. Holdings. The login screen appeared. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I typed in my username. M. Vance. I typed in the password. Blue Harbor 2022. I hit enter. Incorrect username or password. I frowned. I retyped it. Slower this time. BLUEHARBOR 2022. Incorrect username or password. Okay, I whispered. Okay. Maybe I changed it and forgot. I clicked Forgot Password. Enter your email address to reset your password. I typed in my email, mara.vance@gmail.com. The screen spun for a second, a little gray circle of doom. Error. This email address is not associated with an active account. My heart hammered against my ribs. That was impossible. I was the CFO of our LLC. My email was the primary contact. I tried David's email, password reset link sent to mobile number ending in 88. His phone. Panic, cold and sharp, flooded my veins. He had removed me. He had gone into the admin settings and deleted my credentials. I grabbed my phone. I needed to get into the secondary account, the personal checking. I opened the app, Face ID failed. Enter passcode. I typed it in. 1984. His birth year. Access denied. I tried my birth year. 1986. Access denied. Account locked for 60 minutes due to too many failed attempts. I slammed the phone down on the desk. The sound cracked like a whip. "David!" I screamed. The silence of the house swallowed my scream instantly. He locked me out. He locked me out of everything. The business, the savings, the checking. Why? "Because you're spending too much," a voice in my head suggested. "Remember last month? You bought that bag. He was mad. Maybe he's just teaching you a lesson." A lesson? Locking your wife out of her own money is not a lesson, it's a siege. I looked at the computer screen again, the red error message mocking me. This isn't about spending, I realized. The realization made my hands go numb. This is about control. He's moving money. He's doing something he doesn't want me to see. I needed to talk to him. Not a text, not a voicemail. I needed to hear his voice. I needed to hear the lie so I could find the crack in it. I dialed his number again. I paced the small office, 3 steps forward, turn, 3 steps back. Ring, ring, ring. "Pick up," I hissed. "Pick up, you coward." Ring. "Mara." His voice was a whisper, hushed, urgent. "David," I said, forcing my voice to be steady. "Why doesn't my card work?" "I can't talk right now," he whispered. "Julia is having a panic attack. I'm trying to get her to sleep." "I don't care about Julia," I snapped. The venom in my voice surprised me. "I care about the fact that I'm standing in a dealership, well, I was, and my card was declined, and now I can't log into the bank." There was a pause, a long, heavy silence where I could hear him breathing. I heard a door close in the background. "You went to the dealership?" David said. His voice wasn't whispering anymore. It was cold, disappointed. "Mara, we talked about this. The cash flow is tight right now with the merger coming up." "What merger?" I asked. "We aren't merging with anyone." "The potential acquisition," he said smoothly. "I told you about this last week. Were you not listening?" I blinked. Had he? I tried to remember. We had dinner Tuesday. He had talked about work. I had been thinking about my dad. Maybe I missed it. I don't remember an acquisition," I stammered. "See, this is what I mean," he said. He sounded weary, like I was a child he had to manage. "You zone out, Mara. You don't pay attention to the details. I had to freeze the liquidity to show proof of funds for the underwriters. If we have any large outflows, like, say, a Porsche, it kills the deal." "You changed my passwords," I said. "You removed my email." "Security protocols," he said instantly. "The underwriters required a single point of admin access during the audit period. I sent you an email about it." "You did not send me an email." "I did. Check your spam. Or maybe you just deleted it without reading. You do that sometimes." Doubt, hideous and slithering, crept into my mind. Do I? I was stressed lately. Dad was getting worse. I had been deleting generic emails. "David, I have no money," I said, my voice trembling. "I have $0 access right now." "I transferred $500 to your prepaid card," he said. "That should cover groceries for the week. I'll be back on Wednesday. We can unfreeze everything then once the audit clears." "Wednesday?" I asked. "You said you'd be back tomorrow." "Complications," he said. It's bad, Mara. She tried to hurt herself. I can't just leave her alone." "Call 911 then," I said. "She needs a friend, not a hospital," he said. "Look, I have to go. She's calling me. Stop spending money, Mara. Just sit tight. Trust me." "David." Click. He hung up. I stood there holding the phone. He made it sound so reasonable. Proof of funds, underwriters, security protocols. It was all business jargon. It made sense. But $500? For a week? I checked my spam folder. Nothing from David. He's lying, I thought. Or maybe he's right, the other voice said. Maybe you are just stressed and paranoid. He's helping a suicidal woman. And you're screaming about a Porsche. I felt small, selfish. Then my phone buzzed. A calendar reminder. Dad. Care home payment due today. I stared at the screen. The payment was $4,000. It was on auto pay. If the accounts were frozen, the auto pay would bounce. The nursing home smelled of lavender antiseptic and boiled vegetables. It was a premium care facility, which meant they had a piano in the lobby that no one played, and the carpets were vacuumed daily. I walked up to the front desk. The receptionist, a woman named Linda, who usually greeted me with a smile, looked down at her papers when she saw me. "Hi, Linda," I said. "I'm here to see Dad." "Mrs. Vance," she said. She didn't look up. "Mr. Henderson is in the director's office. He'd like to speak with you before you go up." My stomach turned over. Mr. Henderson was the billing director. "Okay," I said. I walked to the office. The door was open. Mr. Henderson was a large man with a compassionate face that hardened when it came to arrears. "Mara," he said, gesturing to the chair, "come in." "Is Dad okay?" I asked, sitting down. "Arthur is fine," he said, "physically, but we have a problem with the account." He slid a piece of paper across the desk. It was a ledger. Red ink trailed down the right column. "The auto draft came back today," he said. "Insufficient funds. But that's not the only issue. Mara, we haven't received a full payment in 3 months. I stared at him. "What? That's impossible. It's set up on the joint account. David handles the..." My voice trailed off. "David handles the outbound bills." 3 months? I whispered. "We received partial payments," Henderson said. 500 here, 200 there. But the balance is now over $12,000. Corporate is flagging it for eviction proceedings." "Eviction?" I stood up. My legs felt like water. "You can't evict him. He has dementia. He can't go anywhere." "We are a private facility, Mara," Henderson said gently. "We aren't a charity. If the balance isn't cleared by Friday, we have to initiate the transfer to a state ward." A state ward, a grim, underfunded warehouse for the forgotten. It would kill him. "There's been a mistake," I said. My voice was shaking. "My husband, there's a banking error due to a merger. The funds are frozen for an audit." I heard myself using David's lies. They sounded ridiculous in this room. Henderson looked at me. He didn't believe me. He had heard every excuse. "Friday, Mara," he said. "Please." I walked out of the office. I didn't go see my dad. I couldn't face him. I couldn't look at his confused, gentle eyes and tell him that his son-in-law had stolen his safety. I walked to the car. I sat in the driver's seat and screamed. I screamed until my throat was raw. It wasn't a glitch. It wasn't an audit. David hadn't just cut me off today. He had been siphoning money for months. He had been starving the accounts, paying the bare minimum to keep the lights on while he stockpiled the rest. He wasn't saving Julia. He was robbing us. I drove home like a maniac. The speed limit was 40. I did 60. When I got home, I didn't go to the kitchen. I went straight to the upstairs hallway, the attic hatch. I grabbed the pull string and yanked it down. The ladder slid out with a screech of rusty springs. Dust motes danced in the afternoon light. I climbed up. The air in the attic was stale and hot. It smelled of fiberglass insulation and old cardboard. I crawled across the beams toward the back corner, the filing cabinet, the old, ugly gray metal one we had brought from our first apartment. David hated digital records for the legacy documents. He insisted on hard copies for the incorporation papers. "Please let it be here," I prayed. "Please let him be arrogant enough to leave the originals." I reached the cabinet. Locked. Of course. I looked around. I needed a tool. I saw a loose brick near the chimney stack. I grabbed it. Smash it? No, too loud. Neighbors might hear. I looked at the lock mechanism. It was cheap. I pulled a bobby pin from my hair. I wasn't a spy, but I had watched enough YouTube videos on lockpicking when I locked myself out of the bathroom once. I jiggled the pin. Nothing. I twisted it. The metal bent against my finger, cutting the skin. I winced, sucking on the blood. "Come on," I whispered. Tears were stinging my eyes. "Come on." I jammed the pin in harder and twisted with the flat end of a screwdriver I found on the floor. Pop. The cylinder turned. I yanked the drawer open. It screeched. Files, hundreds of them. Tax returns, receipts, warranty cards for blenders we broke years ago. I flipped through them, my fingers flying. 2018, 2019, 2020. Where was the LLC formation? Vance & Co. were there. A blue folder, thick and heavy. I pulled it out. I sat on the dusty insulation, ignoring the itch on my legs. I opened it. Operating Agreement of Vance & Co. Holdings, LLC. I flipped past the preamble, past the tax classification, Article 4, Management, Article 5, Voting Rights. I scanned the dense legal text, my eyes blurred. I needed the dissolution clause, or the incapacity clause. Then I saw it. Section 8.4, Deadlock and Absenteeism. I read the words, mouthing them silently. In the event that a managing member is absent from the primary registered business address for a period of 30 consecutive days, without prior written consent of the board, their voting rights shall be immediately suspended. The remaining member shall assume sole executive authority until the absentee member returns. 30 days. I looked at the date on my phone. December 10th. David left on December 1st. He had been gone 10 days. If I could keep him away, if I could keep him out of this house until December 31st, he would lose his vote. I would become the sole executive. I could override the bank freeze. I could fire him. I could take it all back. But he knew this clause. He wrote it. That's why he said he'd be back Wednesday. He knew he couldn't stay away too long. I looked at the paper. It was my lifeline. It was a weapon. I had 20 days. I had to make sure David Vance didn't step foot in this house for 20 days. I closed the folder and hugged it to my chest. The tears stopped. The fear was still there, but it was different now. It was cold. It was calculating. He wanted to play games with numbers? Fine. I wiped the dust from my face. Let's play. I sat in the front seat of my car, parked 3 blocks away from the law firm of Sterling, Harth, and Moore. I couldn't park in their lot. They validated parking, but only for clients, and I wasn't a client. I was a beggar in a tailored blazer. I stared at the phone in my lap. The timer app was open. 14 minutes and 30 seconds. That was the free consultation limit for new inquiries. I took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of stale coffee and desperation that now seemed to permeate the upholstery. I dialed the number. Sterling, Harth, and Moore, how may I direct your call? The receptionist's voice was crisp, professional, and expensive. I need to speak with a corporate litigation associate regarding a hostile partner dispute, I said, keeping my voice low and urgent. I have the operating agreement in front of me. It's a time-sensitive deadlock issue. One moment, Musak played. It was Vivaldi. It sounded like money being shredded. I watched the seconds tick down on my dashboard clock. 1 minute gone. This is Sarah Jenkins, a sharp female voice said. I have a meeting in 20 minutes, so be brief. Clause 8.4, I said, skipping the pleasantries. Absenteeism and deadlock. If a partner is absent for 30 days, does absent imply a total lack of communication or strictly physical absence from the registered premises? There was a pause. I could hear typing. You're referring to a standard abandonment of duty clause? Sarah asked. Usually, these are defined by the specific language of the contract. Read me the exact phrasing. I opened the blue folder on the passenger seat, my fingers trembling slightly as I traced the line. Absent from the primary registered business address for a period of 30 consecutive days. Physical, Sarah said immediately. The key word is address. Electronic communication doesn't count. Zoom calls don't count. They have to physically cross the threshold of the registered office. And if they come back? I asked. For 1 hour, to pick up mail. Then the clock resets, she said. Her voice was bored, clinical. The continuity is broken. If they step foot on the property on day 29, you go back to 0. It has to be 30 uninterrupted days of physical absence. My heart hammered against my ribs. Resets. What if they are prevented from entering? I asked. Prevented how? Changed locks, security systems. That's constructive ouster, Sarah said, her tone sharpening. If you physically bar them from entry, they can sue for injunctive relief, and the clause is void. They have to stay away voluntarily, or at least they have to believe they are staying away voluntarily. I looked at the dashboard. 12 minutes. Thank you, I said. Do you want to schedule a retainer meeting? We require $5,000 up front for... I hung up. I didn't have $5,000. I had $27 in my wallet and a gas tank that was approaching empty. But I had the answer. Voluntary. He had to choose not to come back. I looked at the calendar on my phone. December 12th. David had been gone 12 days. I had 18 days left. 18 days to keep a man away from his own house without him realizing he was being exiled. The phone rang at 7 p.m. I was sitting on the kitchen floor eating a can of tuna because I couldn't bear to dirty a plate I would have to wash. It was David. I let it ring 3 times. Don't look eager, I told myself. You're busy. You're living your life. I picked up on the 4th ring. Hello. I sounded tired. That wasn't acting. Hey, David said. He sounded cheerful, too cheerful. Good news. Julia is stabilizing. Her sister is flying in on Thursday to take over. I'm thinking I can swing by tomorrow night, maybe grab dinner. I miss my own bed. Panic, cold and electric, shot through me. Tomorrow was the 13th. If he came home tomorrow, the clock reset. I would lose. I couldn't say no. If I said no, he'd get suspicious. He was a control freak. Resistance made him push harder. I needed him to run away. I coughed. A wet hacking sound I forced from the back of my throat. Mara, he asked, you okay? I don't know, I rasped. I've been in the bathroom all day. I think it's that stomach bug that's going around the gym. It's violent, David. Oh, he said. The enthusiasm drained from his voice instantly. David was a hypochondriac. He treated the common cold like a personal insult. I didn't want to tell you, I said, adding a weak sniffle. I didn't want you to worry while you were helping Julia, but I'm running a fever of 102 and the mess. Mess? I couldn't make it to the bathroom earlier, I lied. The words tasted like ash, but I pushed them out. I'm bleaching the sheets now. It's everywhere. Silence on the line. I could practically hear him recoiling. That sounds intense, he said. You should come, I said, pitching my voice to sound pathetic, needy. I really need you to help me clean up. And I need soup. Please, David, just come home and take care of me. I held my breath. This was the gamble. If he was a good husband, he would come. If he was the selfish narcissist I suspected he was, he would run. He hesitated. Mara, you know I can't get sick right now, the merger. If I walk into a meeting looking like death, it kills the confidence. But I need you, I whined. I can't risk it, he said, his voice firming up. He was relieved to have an excuse. Look, I'll stay at Julia's guest room for a few more days, until you're non-contagious. I'll order you some soup on DoorDash. You're not coming? I asked, feigning hurt. It's for the business, Mara. We have to be practical. Call me when the fever breaks. Give it, what? 5 days? Maybe a week, I said. Just to be safe. Right, a week. Take care of yourself. He hung up. I lowered the phone. The kitchen was silent. I wasn't sick. I was stronger than I had ever been. Coward, I whispered. He bought it. He was staying away. I stood up and threw the empty tuna can into the recycling bin. It clattered loudly. 18 days became 13. Christmas Eve usually meant a party. David loved parties. He loved the networking, the expensive scotch, the way people looked at our house and assumed we were happy. This year, the house was dark. I hadn't put up a tree. The electricity bill was due in 4 days, and I was rationing kilowatts like a survivalist. I sat on the living room floor, wrapped in a blanket, the glow of my laptop screen, the only light in the room. I logged into Instagram. I shouldn't have done it. It was emotional self-harm. There he was. David had posted a story an hour ago, a boomerang video of 2 crystal flutes clinking together. The background was blurry, but I recognized the gold leaf ceiling, the Pierre Hotel. The caption read, "Closing deals even on the holidays. #grind, #empire." He wasn't grinding. He was drinking vintage champagne with Julia while his wife sat in the dark. I looked at the noodles in my bowl. Instant ramen. Sodium and sadness. I felt a surge of rage so pure it almost felt like joy. He thinks I'm a victim, I thought. He thinks I'm at home crying, waiting for him to come back and rescue me. I opened a new tab. I went to a luxury watch resale site, Chrono 24. I found it. A Patek Philippe Calatrava, rose gold, simple, elegant, price $18,000. I didn't have $18,000, but I had found something else in the attic. An old emergency credit card issued in my name, but linked to a line of credit against the house equity. David had set it up 5 years ago for catastrophic repairs and forgotten about it. It wasn't a bank account. It was debt. If I bought the watch, I was digging the hole deeper. If I lost the company, this debt would crush me. Good, I thought. Burn the boats. I needed to feel the weight of the life I was fighting for. I needed to remember that I wasn't fighting for survival anymore. I was fighting for victory. I entered the card details. My fingers didn't tremble this time. Purchase. Confirmed. I stared at the screen. I had just spent a year's worth of nursing home payments on a watch I didn't need. No, I did need it. I needed to know that I could take something back. I finished the noodles. They tasted metallic. "Merry Christmas, David," I whispered to the empty room. "Enjoy the champagne. It's the last bottle you're going to buy for a very long time." The box from Amazon arrived on December 26th. I ripped it open with my teeth. A wireless security camera. Battery operated. I needed to know if he came to the door. Even if he didn't come in, I needed to know if he was checking up on me. I spent an hour on the ladder in the freezing cold, screwing the mount into the siding above the front door. My fingers were numb. The screw stripped halfway in. "Damn it," I hissed, dropping the screwdriver into the snow. I climbed down, retrieved it, and climbed back up. The wind whipped my hair into my face, blinding me. This is the obstacle course, I thought. Nothing works the first time. I got the camera mounted. I pulled out my phone to sync it. Searching for device. Device not found. I pressed the reset button. The little light blinked orange. Searching for device. Connection failed. Weak Wi-Fi signal. I screamed. A short, sharp sound of frustration. The router was in the office on the other side of the house. I had to move the router. I ran inside, unplugged the modem, and dragged the tangle of wires into the front hallway. I plugged it into the console outlet. The internet light blinked green. I ran back outside. Connection successful. The feed popped up on my phone, a fisheye view of the snowy driveway and the street beyond. I went back inside and locked the door. I threw the deadbolt. I engaged the chain. Then I sat on the stairs and watched the phone screen. I watched it for hours. Every car that drove by made my heart stop. A black SUV. Is that him? No, it was the neighbor. A delivery truck. Is he hiding in it? Paranoia was a heavy coat. I wore it everywhere. I took the phone to the bathroom. I took it to bed. I started seeing patterns that weren't there. Was that a shadow on the porch? Was that a footprint in the snow? I rewound the footage. Nothing. Just the wind. I was becoming the crazy woman in the attic, but I had to be. He was smart. He wouldn't just walk in, he would test me. And then, on December 28th, he did. I was in the kitchen, boiling water for tea, when the motion alert chimed on my phone. Person detected at front door. I froze. I didn't look at the phone. I looked at the hallway. I heard the heavy thud of a car door closing. I ran to the window. David's Mercedes was in the driveway. He was here. It was day 18 of the count. If he came in, if he even opened the door and leaned in to shout hello, the clock reset. I had to stop him. I ran to the front door. I checked the deadbolt. Locked. The chain. Engaged. I heard his footsteps on the porch. Crunch, crunch, crunch. The handle jiggled. He tried to open it. The lock held. "Mara!" he called out. He sounded annoyed. "Why is the deadbolt on?" I couldn't pretend not to be home. The car was in the driveway. I leaned my forehead against the cold wood of the door. "Mara, open up. I forgot my golf clubs. I have a tea time with the investors in an hour." Golf clubs. They were in the front closet. I'm naked, I yelled through the door. It was a stupid lie, but it was the first thing that came to my mind. I just got out of the shower. "So put a towel on and open the door," he shouted. "It's freezing out here." "I can't," I said. I'm feeling really sick again. Dizzy. I can't stand up. "You are literally standing up right now talking to me," he snapped. "Open the damn door, Mara. This is ridiculous." I heard keys jingle. He had his key. I watched the deadbolt turn. Click. The door handle turned. He pushed. The door opened 2 inches, then slammed against the security chain. "What the hell?" David yelled. "You chained the door?" "Safety," I screamed. "I've been scared alone." "Mara, let me in. I just need the clubs. They are right there in the closet. It will take 10 seconds. "No," I said. "You can't come in. The germs." "I don't care about the germs. Open the door." He threw his shoulder against the door. The chain rattled. The screws holding it were old. They wouldn't hold him if he really wanted to break it down. I looked at the closet. The golf bag, it was heavy. I looked at the living room window. "Wait," I yelled. "Wait, I'll get them. Stay there. Don't come in. Just open the... I'll pass them through the window." I ran to the closet. I grabbed the bag. It was heavy, filled with titanium drivers and iron wedges. I dragged it across the floor. I ran to the living room. I unlocked the window sash and shoved it up. The cold air blasted in. David was standing on the porch looking confused. "Go to the window," I screamed. He walked over, looking at me through the screen. "Mara, have you lost your mind? Just let me in." "Here." I hoisted the bag. It was awkward. I grunted with the effort. I shoved the bottom of the bag through the open window, pushing the screen out until it popped loose and fell into the snow. "Take them." I shoved the bag out. David had to catch it to stop it from hitting the ground. He stumbled back, clutching the bag. "You are crazy," he said, staring at me. "You are actually psychotic." "Go play golf," I panted, slamming the window shut. I locked it. I backed away, my chest heaving. He stood there for a moment, shaking his head. Then he turned and walked back to his car. He didn't cross the threshold. The clock was still ticking. December 30th, day 20 of the count. 2 days until the deadline. I was exhausted. The adrenaline from the golf club incident had faded, leaving me hollowed out. I sat on the floor of the office, surrounded by the debris of my investigation. I had been looking for financial records, but I found something else. I had guessed the password to his backup hard drive. It wasn't Julia. It wasn't money. It was Vance Empire. I was scrolling through a folder labeled Correspondence. I found a PDF draft _letter_V4.pdf. It was dated November 15th. 2 weeks before he left. I opened it. It wasn't a letter to Julia. It was a letter to his lawyer. "Attention, Simon, regarding the dissolution of marriage to Mara Vance. Strategy. We need to trigger the insolvency clause on the prenup. If I can show the joint entity has a negative book value for 3 consecutive quarters, her payout is capped at $50,000. I've already initiated the capital depreciation. We need to hold off on filing until January 2nd. By then, the accounts will be drained to the target level. She's clueless about the finances. She won't suspect a thing. She trusts me. Let's make this clean. I want to be done with her and the debt by the new year. I read it twice. She trusts me. He didn't leave because of Julia. He didn't leave because of a midlife crisis. He left because he had engineered a controlled demolition of my life, and he needed to be at a safe distance when the building collapsed. He wasn't conflicted. He wasn't confused. He was bored of me. I looked at the photo of us on the desk, the wedding day, the way he looked at me then. I picked up the frame. I didn't throw it. I didn't smash it. I carefully removed the back, took the photo out, and fed it into the paper shredder. The machine whirred. The smiling faces turned into confetti. I didn't cry. I looked at the calendar. December 30th, one more day. You want to be done by the new year, David? I whispered. I looked at the blue folder with the operating agreement. Careful what you wish for. The digital clock on the microwave flickered from 11:59 to midnight. December 31st. 30 days. I sat at the kitchen table, the laptop screen casting a blue, sickly pallor over my hands. My fingers hovered over the trackpad. I had the Secretary of State's business portal open in a browser tab. The cursor blinked in the username field, a rhythmic, taunting line. Do it, I whispered. I typed my credentials. M_Vance_exec. I typed the password. Sovereign_2024. I hit enter. The screen went white. A spinning wheel appeared in the center. Authenticating. I held my breath. The house creaked in the wind, sounding like footsteps on the stairs. I glanced at the dark hallway. Empty. The screen flashed. System alert, scheduled maintenance. The business filing portal is currently offline for end-of-year server updates. Expected uptime, 4 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. No, I hissed. I slammed the laptop shut, the sound echoing like a gunshot. No, no, no. I stood up and paced the kitchen. The linoleum was cold against my bare feet. Maintenance. Of course, it was New Year's Eve. The state bureaucracy was resetting its calendars. I had the legal right to file the Notice of Sole Authority as of 1 minute ago, but I couldn't file it if the digital door was welded shut. If David checked the accounts in the morning before I filed, he would see I was still listed as a minority member. He could still block me. I grabbed my phone. I checked the time. 12:05. I had to wait 4 hours. 4 hours of sitting in the dark, wondering if he was awake. Wondering if he was checking the same portal, trying to dissolve the company before I could claim it. I went to the window. The street was empty. Snow swirled in the cones of light from the street lamps. I felt like a thief in my own life. I wasn't stealing. I was reclaiming. But the adrenaline tasted like guilt. I made coffee. I didn't want it, but I needed the ritual. The grinder screamed, shattering the silence. I winced, waiting for the phone to ring, waiting for David to sense the disturbance in the force. He didn't call. I sat back down. I opened the laptop again. I hit refresh. System alert, scheduled maintenance. I hit it again and again. I was going to sit here until the sun came up or the server came back online, whichever came first. 3:42 in the morning. My eyes felt like they were filled with sand. The coffee had turned into acid in my stomach. I hit refresh for the 1,000th time. The blue banner appeared. Welcome, Mara. I let out a breath I felt like I'd been holding since November. Okay, I muttered. Focus. I navigated to the Amendment of Articles section. My hand was shaking so badly the cursor danced across the screen like a chaotic moth. Select filing type. Change of management / member removal. I clicked it. Upload supporting documentation. I clicked Browse. I found the file on my desktop. affidavit _of abandonment _sign.pdf. I had notarized it myself 2 days ago using an online service. It was technically valid, though a judge might squint at it later. I didn't care about later. I cared about now. I clicked upload. A green bar appeared. Uploading 20%, 45%. It stalled at 99%. I stared at it. The little number just sat there. 99%. Don't you dare, I whispered. Don't you freeze now. I watched the Wi-Fi icon in the corner of the screen. It dropped from 3 bars to 1, then back to 2, the router. It was still in the hallway, rigged up with extension cords. I stood up, ready to run and reboot it, but then the screen flashed green. Upload complete. Filing submitted. Processing time immediate. I clicked View Current Entity Status. The page reloaded. Entity name, Vance & Co. Holdings, LLC. Managing members, 1. Mara Vance, sole executive member. David's name was gone. I slumped back in the chair, the tension leaving my body so fast it left me dizzy. He was out, legally, technically, officially. He was no longer a manager. He was just a silent partner with no voting rights. Now came the hard part. I had to convince the bank. The bank opened at 9. I was in the parking lot at 8:45. I had dressed for war. I wore my sharpest suit, a charcoal gray blazer that cost more than my first car, and heels that clicked with authority on the pavement. I had pulled my hair back into a tight chignon. I wore the Patek Philippe watch I had bought on credit. It was armor. If I looked like I had money, they wouldn't question where I was moving it. I watched the bank manager unlock the glass doors. He was a balding man with a weary face. Mr. Henderson? No. Henderson was the nursing home guy. This was Mr. Albright. I waited until he flipped the sign to open. I walked in. The air inside was warm and smelled of carpet cleaner. Good morning, I said. My voice was steady. I need to speak with a commercial relationship manager immediately. The teller looked at my suit, then at the watch. Do you have an appointment? I am the CEO of Vance & Co. Holdings, I said. I don't need an appointment to access my own capital. She blinked. 1 moment. 5 minutes later, I was sitting in a glass-walled office. Mr. Albright sat across from me. He looked at the papers I had slid across the desk. Mrs. Vance, he said, adjusting his glasses. I see the state filing update. But usually David handles these transfers. Is he available? David is no longer an operating member, I said. As per the Deadlock Provision of our operating agreement, which you have in front of you, his voting rights have been suspended due to abandonment. I am the sole executive. Albright frowned. He picked up the phone. I should probably give him a quick call to verify. If you call him, I interrupted, leaning forward, you will be in breach of your fiduciary duty to the primary account holder, which is now me. You will be alerting a non-voting member to a proprietary business strategy. If this deal falls through because you leaked info, I will sue this branch for negligence. It was a bluff, a massive, terrifying bluff. Albright hesitated. He looked at the paper again. The state seal on the document was fresh. It's a large sum, he said. It's business, I said. We are acquiring a competitor. The wire needs to go out by noon. He sighed and put the phone down. Where are we sending the funds? I slid a second piece of paper across the desk. It was the routing number for a new account I had opened online at a different bank, Credit Suisse. Clear the operating account, I said. Leave $5,000 for overhead. Move the rest. The rest is $2.4 million, Albright said. $2,412,000, I corrected him. Send it. Albright typed on his keyboard. Clack, clack, clack. I watched his reflection in the glass wall. I could see the street outside, people walking by, oblivious, a woman with a stroller, a man walking a dog. They didn't know that inside this fishbowl, a life was being dismantled. I need your token code, Albright said. I pulled the little plastic fob from my purse. It was David's. I had taken it from his desk drawer when I found the passport. He never used it. He used the app. But the fob still worked. I pressed the button. The 6 digits appeared on the LCD screen. 492618, I recited. Albright typed them in. Authorizing, he muttered. My heart was beating in my throat, a frantic bird trying to escape. Please don't ask for a second signature. Please don't ask for a voice verification. Okay, Albright said. The wire is initiated. He printed a receipt. The sound of the dot matrix printer was the most beautiful music I had ever heard. Zzzzt, zzzzt. He tore the paper off and handed it to me. Status, pending. Amount, $2,412,000. It usually takes 2 hours to clear through the Federal Reserve, Albright said. Thank you, I said. I stood up. My knees were water. I forced them to be steel. I walked out of the office. I walked out of the bank. I got into my car. I locked the doors. I looked at the receipt. I had done it. I had stripped him clean. I started the car. I needed to go. I needed to be somewhere safe when the notification hit his phone. I drove to a coffee shop 3 towns over. I couldn't go home. Not yet. I sat in the corner nursing a lukewarm latte, watching my phone. 1 hour passed, then the vibration, buzz, buzz. I looked at the screen. It wasn't the bank app confirming the deposit. It was a text from the bank. Fraud alert. Large transaction attempted on account ending 9982. Transfer has been flagged for secondary review. Please contact the fraud prevention unit immediately. My blood ran cold. Secondary review. That meant a human being was looking at it. That meant they were calling the number on file. David's number. I stared at the phone. No. The screen lit up again. Incoming call. David. He knew. He had gotten the call. He had authorized the stop. I let it ring. I couldn't breathe. The coffee shop seemed to tilt sideways. The chatter of the other patrons turned into a roar of white noise. He knew I was trying to move the money, and he knew I had failed. The phone stopped ringing. Then a text message appeared. David. Nice try, Mara. I'm calling the police. You're done. I stared at the words. Calling the police. He was going to frame me. He was going to say I hacked the account. Which, technically, with the stolen fob and the password guessing, I kind of had. Even with the legal paperwork, it looked like theft. I had the notice of sole authority, but that was a civil document. The police wouldn't care about operating agreements. They would care about a wife draining a joint business account without the husband's consent. I was trapped. I looked at the receipt again. Status. Pending. It wasn't rejected yet. It was just flagged. If I could explain, if I could show them the paperwork, but I couldn't explain to a bank over the phone. I had to go back, or I had to run. My phone buzzed again. Find my. David is sharing his location with you. He wanted me to see. I opened the map. He was on the highway, moving fast. He wasn't at Julia's. He was 20 minutes away from the house. He was coming for me. I drove home. It was stupid, but I had to get the physical file. The blue folder. It was my only proof. I had left the original on the desk when I grabbed the fob. If he got to the house first, he would destroy it. He would burn the operating agreement, and then I would just be a thief with no legal defense. I screeched into the driveway. His car wasn't there yet. I ran inside. I didn't bother with the alarm. I sprinted to the office. I grabbed the blue folder. I shoved it into my bag. I turned to leave. Tires crunched on the gravel outside. He was here. I ran to the front door. I locked it. I threw the deadbolt. I ran to the back door. Locked. Mara! His voice was a roar from the front porch. Open this door! Bam, bam, bam. He was kicking it. Go away, I screamed. I called the police. You called the police? He laughed. It was a manic, terrifying sound. I'm the one calling the cops. You stole $2 million. It's my company, I yelled back. You abandoned it. I was gone for 3 weeks. 30 days, I screamed. You were gone 30 days. Read the contract, David! The kicking stopped. Silence. Then I heard the click of a key in the lock. He had his key. I had forgotten to change the barrel. I had only used the chain before. The deadbolt slid back. The door opened. The security chain went taut. Through the crack, I saw his face. He wasn't the polished, handsome man I married. He looked wild. His eyes were bloodshot. He hadn't shaved. "Open it," he snarled. "No," I said, backing away. He threw his shoulder against the door. The wood of the frame splintered. The chain bracket groaned. He was going to break it down. I turned and ran, not to the basement, not to the attic. I ran to the kitchen. I grabbed the longest knife from the block. I stood behind the island. "Come in, David," I whispered, my voice trembling but loud enough for him to hear. "Come in and see what happens." The door smashed open. The chain snapped, metal clinking against the floor. David stormed into the hallway. He marched into the kitchen. He stopped when he saw the knife. He looked at me. He looked at the blade. "You're going to stab me?" he sneered. "You don't have the guts." "I have nothing left to lose," I said. "You took the money. You took the house. You tried to leave me with the debt. I'm not the wife you left, David. I'm the partner you screwed over." He took a step forward. Sirens. Wailing, beautiful sirens in the distance, approaching fast. He froze. "You actually called them?" he asked, his voice losing its edge. "I told them there was an intruder," I said, "a man who doesn't live here anymore." David looked at the door, then at me. The calculation in his eyes was instant. He straightened his jacket. He smoothed his hair. "Fine," he said. He put his hands up. "Let them come. We'll let the law decide." He smiled. It was the smile he used on investors before he ripped them off. "You think a piece of paper makes you the boss?" he said softly. "I built this empire, Mara. You're just the secretary." The blue lights flashed against the kitchen window. "We'll see," I said. I didn't put the knife down. The police officers were young. They looked like they should be in a fraternity, not wearing Kevlar vests in my kitchen. Officer Miller, the taller one, looked from the knife on the counter to David, who was leaning against the refrigerator with a practiced air of weary patience. "Ma'am," Miller said, his hand resting near his belt, "you said there was an intruder." "He doesn't live here," I said. My voice was calm now. The adrenaline had crystallized into something sharp and cold. "He hasn't lived here for 30 days. He broke the door chain to gain entry." David laughed. It was a soft, incredulous sound designed to make me look hysterical. "Officer, I'm her husband," David said, flashing his driver's license. "I've been away on business. She's having an episode. Look at her." She pulled a knife on me. Miller looked at the license. Then he looked at me. "The address matches, ma'am." "The address on the license is irrelevant," I said. I reached into my bag and pulled out the blue folder. I handed the Notice of Sole Authority and the Affidavit of Abandonment to the officer. "This is a legal declaration filed with the Secretary of State this morning. Mr. Vance has been removed from the deed and the LLC due to abandonment. He has no tenancy rights here. He is trespassing." Miller took the papers. He squinted at the legal jargon. He didn't understand the corporate law, but he understood the stamp. Filed official. He's also the subject of a pending fraud investigation regarding the theft of company assets, I added. "If you let him stay, you are aiding a suspect in accessing the crime scene." David's smile faltered. "That's a lie. She's crazy." "Check the dispatch log," I said. "There's a flag on his accounts from the bank. That's why he's here, to destroy evidence." Miller looked at his partner. The partner nodded and keyed his radio. "Dispatch, run a check on a David Vance." We waited. The kitchen was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. David stared at me. His eyes weren't angry anymore. They were scared. The radio crackled. "Subject has a pending fraud alert from Bank of America. Advise caution." Miller's demeanor changed instantly. He stepped away from David. "Mr. Vance, I'm going to have to ask you to step outside." "This is my house," David shouted. The mask slipped. The veins in his neck bulged. "I paid for this kitchen. I paid for everything." "Sir, step outside," Miller repeated, his hand moving to his taser. David looked at the officers, then at me. He sneered. "You think you won?" he hissed. "You don't know how to run the empire, Mara. You're an accountant. You're a calculator. You're nothing without me." "I'm the sole executive," I said. He lunged, not at me, but at the counter where his phone was charging. Miller grabbed him. The partner grabbed his other arm. They wrestled him out the back door. I watched through the broken frame. They didn't arrest him. It was a civil matter, but they escorted him to his car. They made him leave. I watched his taillights disappear down the street. I closed the door. I couldn't lock it. The wood was shattered. I dragged the heavy kitchen table in front of it. I sat on the floor, leaning against the table legs. I was alone. The house was broken, but it was mine. The next morning, the phone rang. It was an unknown number. I almost didn't answer. I was sitting in the living room with a contractor who was quoting me $2,000 to fix the door frame. "Hello?" I answered. He lied to me too. The voice was jagged, broken. "Julia." I walked into the kitchen, away from the contractor. "Julia," I said, "if you're calling to tell me he loves you, I don't care." "He doesn't love anyone," she sobbed. "He told me he had access to your trust fund. He told me the merger was going to pay out $10 million. I gripped the phone. "There is no trust fund." "I know that now," she cried. "I paid for everything, Mara. The hotel suite, the dinners, the rental car. He maxed out my credit cards. He said he couldn't use his because of the audit. He said he'd pay me back double when the deal closed." I closed my eyes. Of course. The high life wasn't funded by theft, not yet. It was a Ponzi scheme. He was using Julia's money to impress... Who? Me? Himself? "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because he's back here," she whispered. "He's packing his things. He says it's your fault. He says you ruined the deal. But I saw his laptop, Mara. I saw the emails." "What emails?" "He wasn't staying with me because I was sick," she said. "He was staying with me because he sublet your apartment in the city behind your back. He's been broke for 6 months. He's been gambling on futures. He lost it all." The pieces clicked into place. The tight budget. The refusal to pay the nursing home. The panic over the Porsche. He wasn't stealing the company to start a new life. He was stealing it to pay off a debt I didn't even know existed. "Get him out of your house, Julia," I said. "Change your locks." "I'm scared," she said. "Don't be scared," I said. "Be angry. It's more useful." I hung up. I looked at the contractor. "Fix the door," I said, "and install steel reinforcement." "That'll be extra," he said. "I can pay," I said. "The wire just cleared." The courtroom was sterile. It smelled of floor wax and old lies. David sat at the plaintiff's table. He was wearing his best suit, but it looked slightly rumpled. He hadn't slept. His lawyer, a man named Simon, who cost $400 an hour, stood up. "Your Honor, this is a clear case of spousal theft," Simon boomed. "Mrs. Vance used a technicality, a temporary absence due to a medical emergency, to seize control of a joint asset and liquidate the accounts. We are asking for an immediate injunction and the return of the $2.4 million. The judge, a stern woman with reading glasses perched on her nose, looked at me. "Mrs. Vance?" I stood up. I didn't have a lawyer. I couldn't find one who would take the case on such short notice without a massive retainer I couldn't access yet. I was representing myself. "Your Honor," I said, "the absence was not temporary, nor was it for a medical emergency. I have a sworn affidavit from the supposed patient, Julia Miller, stating she was not in rehab." I handed the paper to the bailiff. David stiffened. "Furthermore," I continued, my voice steady, "I invoke the doctrine of unclean hands." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Go on." Mr. Vance claims I stole the money, but the forensic accounting shows that for the last 6 months, he has been diverting company revenue into a hidden account in the Cayman Islands. He was purposefully devaluing the company to trigger a low-ball buyout clause in our prenup. I produced the second document, the one I had found in the correspondence folder, the draft letter to Simon. He planned to leave me destitute on January 2nd, I said. I simply executed the contract he wrote before he could execute the fraud he planned. The judge took the letter. She read it. Her expression didn't change, but the air in the room shifted. She looked at Simon. Counsel, were you aware your client was planning to defraud his wife prior to the dissolution? Simon turned pale. He looked at David. I was not privy to that specific correspondence, Your Honor. It's addressed to you, the judge noted dryly. She banged the gavel. Injunction denied. The deadlock provision stands. Mr. Vance, you are ordered to vacate the premises of Vance and Company immediately. The assets remain with the sole executive until a divorce settlement is reached. And given this evidence of fraud, I am freezing your personal assets pending an investigation. David stood up. You can't do this. It's my money. Sit down, sir, the bailiff warned. I looked at David. He looked small. He looked like a man who had bet everything on a pair of twos and lost to a royal flush. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just gathered my papers. I walked out of the courtroom. I was rich. I was free. And I felt absolutely nothing. The realtor opened the double doors with a flourish. Welcome to the Skyview Suite, she said. 3,000 square feet, heated marble floors. Smart glass windows that tint automatically. I walked in. The view was breathtaking. The city spread out below me like a circuit board, glittering and cold. It's $5 million, the realtor said, watching my face. But for a cash buyer, I'll take it, I said. I didn't ask about the schools. I didn't ask about the neighbors. I didn't care. I sold the suburban house. I sold the furniture. I sold the wedding china. I moved in 3 days later. The apartment was silent. The soundproofing was so good I couldn't hear the wind howling outside. I sat on the white leather sofa. I had a glass of wine, a bottle that cost $300. It tasted like grapes. I looked at my reflection in the dark window. I was wearing the Patek Philippe watch. I was wearing a silk robe. I had won. I had beaten the villain. I had taken the treasure. But the silence was loud. I walked to the bedroom. A king-sized bed, empty. I lay down. The sheets were Egyptian cotton, cool and smooth. I checked my phone. No messages, no David, no Julia, no friends. Because in the last 30 days, I had ignored everyone to focus on the war. I was the queen of a castle in the sky, and I was the only citizen. I turned off the light. It's better than being poor, I whispered to the dark. I wasn't sure if I believed me. I walked into the nursing home. I didn't cringe at the smell this time. I walked straight to the director's office. Mr. Henderson looked up, surprised. I placed a check on his desk. $50,000, I said. That covers the arrears and the next year in advance. I want him moved to a private suite with a garden view. Henderson picked up the check. He looked at it, then at me. His eyes softened. Mara, he said, this is wonderful. Arthur will be so comfortable. Can I see him? Of course. He's in the solarium. I walked to the sunroom. My dad was sitting in a wheelchair, looking at a plastic fern. Dad? I said softly. He turned. His eyes were milky, confused. Hi, he said. It's me, Mara. He smiled. Mara, where is the tall man? David? My heart cracked, a fissure running right down the center. David isn't here, Dad, I said, kneeling beside him. David couldn't make it. He's a good boy, Dad said, patting my hand. He takes care of things. You hold on to him, Mara. Good men are hard to find. I looked at his hand, withered and spotted, resting on my silk sleeve. I couldn't tell him. I couldn't tell him that the good boy had tried to throw him onto the street. I couldn't tell him that I had destroyed the good boy to save us. I know, Dad, I lied. I know. I stayed with him for an hour. We didn't talk. I just held his hand and watched the plastic fern gather dust. The money had saved his room. It had saved his dignity. But it couldn't save his memory. And it couldn't fix the fact that the only person he asked for was the man who betrayed us both. The bar was dark, lit only by amber recessed lighting. It was the kind of place where a cocktail cost $30 and the ice was hand-chipped from a glacier. I sat at the end of the bar. I liked the corner. It gave me a view of the room, tactical advantage. A man sat down 2 stools away. He was handsome, late 40s, tailored suit, no ring. He glanced at me. He looked at the watch on my wrist. He recognized the brand. "Is that a Calatrava?" he asked. His voice was smooth, practiced. "Reference 5196R, I said, not looking up from my drink. He smiled. He slid 1 stool closer. "I'm Mark," he said. "I'm in private equity." "Of course you are," I said. "And what do you do?" he asked. I turned to look at him. I engaged the analytical wife archetype. I scanned him. Shoes, Berluti. Expensive, but scuffed. He's careless. Cufflinks, novelty skulls. He thinks he's edgy. Eyes darting to the TV screen behind me. Distracted. He was a player, a climber, a David. "I'm in waste management," I said. He blinked. "Really?" "I dispose of toxic assets," I said. I finished my drink. I put a $100 bill on the counter. "And I'm off the clock." I stood up. "Wait," he said. "Let me buy you another." "No thanks," I said. "I can buy the whole bar." I walked out into the cold night air. The city was loud, chaotic, alive. I pulled my coat tight. I walked toward my penthouse. I was hard. I was sharp. I was unbreakable. I had built a fortress out of betrayal, and it was magnificent. But as I walked, I kept checking my phone. Not for a message. I was checking the bank balance. Balance. $2,380,000. It was just a number. It didn't hug back. But it would have to do. Outro, they say the best revenge is living well. That's a lie. The best revenge is surviving when they expected you to die. I didn't want this life. I wanted the kitchen table and the shared debt and the Sunday mornings. But that life was a hologram. It flickered and died the moment the Wi-Fi signal dropped. So I built a new life. A life of hard edges and high thread counts. A life where I check the exits before I check the menu. David is somewhere in a rented room dodging subpoenas. I'm here, drinking vintage wine. I won. But sometimes, when the apartment is too quiet, I wonder if the price of admission was too high. I traded my innocence for security. I traded my heart for a ledger. If you knew your partner was planning to leave you with nothing in 30 days, would you wait for the courts to save you? Or would you press the button, drain the accounts, and become the villain to save yourself? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from, or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here.